Well, the reason this battle is called the Battle of Kennesaw Mountain is because it takes place around the largest geographic and topographical feature in the area. There are hills around there. And the topography and the terrain are very, very difficult. The undergrowth and the trees are much closer together. These up and down ravines that, as you get closer to the mountain, become more significant, make it very, very difficult to move men through there and have them maintain their linear formations. The events that lead up to the Battle of Kennesaw Mountain are really the first half of the Atlanta campaign. The Atlanta campaign is carried out by the federal forces now under the overall command of Ulysses Grant. It seems really weird to consider this, but federal strategy had not been coordinated very well between the eastern and western theaters at all. The generals in each section were basically told, go beat the Confederates, and that was it. Well, with Grant in command, he now wants to coordinate these efforts so that the Confederacy cannot reinforce from one point to the other the way they had done in the previous year with the battles of Gettysburg and Chickamauga. Grant wants to keep the pressure on in both places. He puts his best lieutenant, Sherman, in command of this western theater and tells him to keep Johnston's army occupied and to get into the interior of the Confederacy and cause as much damage to the army and the logistics and the infrastructure as possible. It doesn't start out being the target of the campaign, but Atlanta, simply because of its location and because it is a transportation and manufacturing hub, quickly becomes Sherman's focus. When Sherman tries to get to Atlanta, he's going to try to get around Johnston's army rather than give a direct assault. And so up to the point of Kennesaw Mountain, Sherman had been trying all these flanking maneuvers to get around the fortifications to prevent a full frontal assault. He's gotten far enough south that Kennesaw Mountain and those hills around it are going to command that Western and Atlantic Railroad. So he has to do something to force the Confederate defensive lines away. The quickest, easiest way to do that is to simply attack and blow a hole in Johnston's line, and therefore he can make a straight run to Atlanta. Following the railroads to maintain his supply lines is something Sherman really had to do, and that railroad goes right underneath the shadow of Kennesaw Mountain. One of the advantages the Confederacy has from a military perspective is that their manpower can be spent in military jobs, infantry and cavalry, because they have an enslaved population that can be forced to come and dig these and prepare these entrenchments. That frees up all the Confederate white manpower that's going to be the military basis, and the enslaved population is going to be the ones who perform most of the fortification work. The Confederates have prepared these lines very, very well. They have something called abattis, which is just trees that have been cut down with the branches facing the enemy troops. And if you can imagine just trying to walk through a lot of cut down trees, it's going to slow you down, if not stop you. And while you're there trying to make your way through the trees, you're being fired at by rifles and by cannons. And so it's a very, very effective form of defense. The Confederate forces at the salient there at the center of the Confederate line are on something that has come to be called Cheatham's Hill. This was the main effort of the Union assault. And as a result, this is where most of the worst of the fighting and the worst of the casualties occurs. That salient can be seen, if you look at a map from above, as an angle, and with so many losses, of course it's going to be called the dead angle. At one portion of the dead angle, some of the Union troops get so close that they're able to throw rocks at each other. The outcome of the Battle of Kennesaw Mountain has a couple of important factors. First of all, is it makes Sherman and the rest of his army realize that no matter how bad things get, they probably shouldn't undertake another full frontal assault of Confederate prepared positions. Period. The losses are too significant, and they were not able to break them. So it makes Sherman re-adopt the flanking efforts that he had undertaken with the entirety of the Atlanta campaign, and it goes back to that. Even though it's a tactical Confederate victory, strategically, Sherman still achieves what he wants because he's fixed Johnston in this position, been able to get around to Johnston's left. So today, when you go to Kennesaw Mountain National Battlefield Park, it's a very important part of the Atlanta campaign. It's sort of the place you can go that's left. There has been so much growth, if you want to call it that, so much development along the corridor between Chattanooga and Atlanta, especially the closer you get to Atlanta, that much of this incredibly important campaign and battlefield is lost to us. But Kennesaw Mountain, you can still go there and you can still walk in the fields and in those ravines and in those woods and get a sense of these men. I think it's a really, really important part of what we can do to try and appreciate just one small aspect of the past.